Thank you for tuning in to the Generational Gauntlet Top 5 Faves. This is the podcast where we give you our top 5 on a topic with a generational twist to it. Welcome to the first episode. If you haven't had a chance to check out the preview episode, let me run through how this podcast is going to work. Each episode, I'm going to have a different host with me who's from a different generation than me. Me, I'm a millennial. During each episode, my guest and I have a topic that we've ranked with a top 5. The topic may be related to sports, music, movies, or anything in between. Today, I'm bringing in one of my favorite Gen-Xers, my dad, Larry Lambert. When I thought up this podcast, a sports topic was the first top 5 that came to mind. Not all of these will be sports related, but this whole idea of the podcast started with the idea of who's the GOAT in the NBA and how that looks different based on the era of basketball you grew up watching. Basketball has played a huge role in our family. Dad, talk to me. Why has basketball played such a huge role for you growing up?
Well, being very competitive, of course, I've always enjoyed playing basketball around the neighborhood. And when my dad started coaching an elementary team when I was in elementary, I didn't go to that school, but he had me come over and practice with the team to help them out. And then I would go and be the statistician for the games that they played for the elementary league. And then later in life, I actually coached AAU girls basketball with my dad for a few years. And during that time frame, our best place was number 13 in the nation. And then, of course, years later, my dad actually won the AAU national championship with a team later on.
Yeah, so as my dad's saying, basketball has been in our family for generations. I'd say most of the family has had a hand in the basketball machine at some point. My problem was my hand, as I couldn't really dribble with my left, which is why my sports participation turned elsewhere, but I still love the game of basketball. So this is how the lists are going to work. We each have compiled our list for the top 5 NBA players of all time. And then we have why we've ranked them where we have them. My dad's going to kick things off. He'll give us his number 5 and his reasonings for that. I'll give my number 5 player, and we'll continue to do that until we get to each of our number 1s. I think I have an idea of where his number 1 is going to land. I think it's going to be a little bit different than mine, but neither of us have seen each other's top 5 list. So with that, Dad, I'm going to hand it over to you. Who's your number 5? Why are they your number 5 best NBA player all time?
Well, my number 5 player is Kobe Bryant, the Black Mamba, as he's known as. And my reasoning for putting him number 5 is, number 1, he's a very fierce competitor. He was a 5-time NBA champion, a NBA MVP award winner, 2-time finals MVP. He was an 18-time All-Star, 15-time All-NBA team, a 4-time All-Star MVP, 11-time All-NBA first team, 9 times All-Defensive first team. He's the 4th leading scorer in NBA history, and he was also the 2-time NBA scoring champion. Put him number 5 because he's a good scorer, and his footwork, his determination, just as competitive as he was, I think it makes him a good spot there at number 5.
I will say Kobe's not in my number 5, but I can respect it. You've got some stats, some MVP, finals MVP awards to back that up. My number 5 is Wilt Chamberlain. I'm going all the way back to the 60s and 70s to kick my list off. Everyone knows Wilt as a scorer. He has the most points in NBA history in a game with 100 points. He's the 7th all-time leading scorer in NBA history. He's number 7 all-time in playoff points. And in total, he holds 72 NBA records. His other stat lines: number 1 all-time in rebounds, number 9 all-time in triple-doubles, and number 2 all time in playoff rebounds. We don't even know the dude's blocks, as those stats weren't recorded during his career. The Defensive Player of the Year award also didn't exist during his career, or he might have some of those as well. He played 14 seasons, won Rookie of the Year, 4 MVPs, and in 10 of his 14 seasons, he was on an All-NBA team. He made the All-Star team in 13 of his 14 years, and in 10 seasons, he was a top 5 vote getter for MVP. Only player in NBA history to average 30 points and 20 rebounds in a game, and he did it 7 times. Only center in NBA history to lead the league in assists. He even averaged 50 points per game in a season. He played in 6 NBA finals, winning 2 of them, and earned 1 finals MVP. And if you want to come at him for losing, he went against those juggernaut Boston Celtics teams in his finals losses. He was elected into the Hall of Fame in '78. He was on the NBA's 35th, 50th, and 75th anniversary squads. And with all those accolades, I couldn't keep him off of my list today. I'll kick it back to you. Who's your number 4?
My number 4 is Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Of course, he was at one time for many, many years the leading career points leader before that record was broke with 38,387 points. He's well known for probably one of the hardest shots to defend, his famous skyhook. He had 6 MVP awards, which was an NBA record, 6 NBA championship rings. He was 2 times the finals MVP, a 19-time NBA All-Star. He was 10 times the All-NBA first team. 5 times he was the All-Defensive first team, 2-time NBA scoring champion, and 4-time NBA blocks leader. So he would be on my top 5 there, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
Like I said, we don't know each other's lists. I have Kareem Abdul-Jabbar as my number 4 as well. So I'm going to back you up here on this one. We're not talking about their college days. And with that being said, he's probably the greatest college basketball player of all time. This is one of those guys who, like him and Wilt, you know him by one name. I think that's a lot of the people on this list. But I think Kareem could be known as a winner. He played 20 seasons in the league. His teams only missed the playoffs twice. In half of his seasons, so 10 times, he went to the NBA Finals, going 6-4. You mentioned some of his stats. He's the number 2 all-time leading scorer, number 3 all-time in rebounds, number 3 in blocks, number 24 in triple-doubles. In the playoffs, he's number 2 all-time in scoring, number 2 in blocks, number 6 in rebounds. You mentioned his 6 MVPs. That's the NBA record. He's got the second most All-Star appearances all time. He's second all-time with the All-NBA team appearances. The Defensive Player of the Year award didn't exist until 1982, but he still managed to be a 5-time first-team All-Defense and a 6-time second-team All-Defense. On the date of his retirement, he was the then leader in NBA history in points, games played, minutes played, field goals made, field goals attempted, blocked shots, and defensive rebounds. He was elected to the Hall of Fame in 1995. He's on the NBA's 35th, 50th, and 75th anniversary teams. And based on the fact that we both have him at number 4, I don't think anything else needs to be said. I'm going to kick it back to you for your number 3 all-time.
My number 3 all-time is Magic Johnson, mainly because of his versatility and his basketball IQ. He actually played all 5 positions at one time or another on the court during his NBA days. He was a 5-time NBA champion. He had 3 MVP and Finals MVP awards. He was All-NBA First Team 9 times, a 12-time NBA All-Star, 2-time All-Star MVP. He was the assist leader 4 times, and he was a 2-time steals leader. I think just as I mentioned before, his versatility and his basketball IQ made him very electric and made him one of the best all-around versatile players of any generation.
Based on where I think your top two are going, I'm going to be upset that you left this guy off the list. I think when we get into the debates, we get into a lot of ring talk. And you hear player A is better than player B because they've got more rings than that guy. And if we're basing it on rings, my number 3 should be number 1 then, and that's Bill Russell. I feel like we need to cue up DJ Khaled's All I Do Is Win because that's what Russell did. This man won everywhere. 2 college titles, a gold medal in the Olympics, and 11 NBA championships. He is one of only 8 men in history to win that triple crown of a gold medal, a college title, an NBA title. Say what you want about the number of teams in the league when he played. I think the league was about 8 teams to 14 in that span of his career. But in 13 seasons, he played in 12 NBA finals and he won 11 of them. 8 of those occurred in a row. He doesn't have any finals MVPs, but that's because they didn't exist. He's the number 2 all-time rebounder, number 38 all-time in triple-doubles, number 1 all-time in playoff rebounds. He was known as an elite defender. We don't know his block stats because they didn't record blocks that early in the NBA's history. He won 5 MVPs, and in 11 of his 13 seasons, he was a top 5 vote getter for the award. He made 11 All-NBA teams, 3 of which were first team. He had 12 All-Star appearances. And let me hit you with some stuff that maybe you didn't know. Russell was actually selected 2nd overall in the NBA draft in 1956. Dad, I'm curious, do you know who was drafted 1st overall over Russell in 1956?
No guess.
All right, I didn't know this guy's name. Cy Green, who I had to Google, was chosen before Bill Russell. Russell would get traded to the Celtics, which may be the most lopsided trade in NBA history. In 12 straight seasons, Russell had at least 1,000 rebounds per season. In his final 3 seasons, he was a literal player coach. If you're not familiar, when Red Otterbach retired, Russell was coaching the team and playing on the floor. He was actually the 4th choice for coach as they thought he was too surly. Russell would win his last 2 titles while serving in this dual role. He was elected to the Hall of Fame in 1975. They put him in the Hall again in 2021 for his coaching career. He was on the 25th, 35th, 50th, and 75th anniversary teams. Space travel has Neil Armstrong as being the first man to walk on the moon. But Bill Russell was the NBA's version in terms of firsts. He was the first black player to achieve superstar status in the league. He was the first black coach in the NBA. He made such an impact on the league that back in 2009, they named the Finals MVP award for him. Yeah, just the best player in a finals game, they named that award after him. After his passing, the league retired his number 6 jersey for all teams, and he's the only person in NBA history to receive that recognition. For all of his groundbreaking accomplishments, for the fact that all he did was win, I put Bill Russell number 3 on my list. So I'm curious to hear your number 2, but I'm afraid I think I know where you might be going.
My number 2 is Charles Barkley. No, I'm just kidding. That's a terrible pick. My number 2 is none other than LeBron James.
Oh.
And here's why I put LeBron James as number 2. Yes, he is the NBA's all-time leading scorer. And that is a great accomplishment. He is durable. He's played for many years, and he's a physical specimen in terms of his size. He is a 4-time NBA champion, 4-time MVP, and a finals MVP. He's an all-NBA first team 13 times, 21 times he's been an NBA All-Star. He's been the All-Star MVP 3 times. 5 times he's been on the all-defensive first team, and he had 1 time that he was the NBA's scoring champion. The reason I kind of put him at number 2 is that, in my opinion, he has had the luxury of playing in a little bit of what I deem to be a softer, gentler NBA versus some of these guys that used to brawl it out at the drop of a hat and mug each other on the daily basis. I know that he plays in this era where the 3-point is a whole lot more prevalent and the game has changed and everything, but I just think that he does play in a little bit of an era where it's a tad softer than what it may have been in years gone by. And then, of course, as some of these guys we've listed on here before, they all tended to play for one team. And of course, LeBron went where the money was and where they could build the big three and put together a juggernaut with whatever money was available. So I know he did manage to get the Cavaliers their championship, and that was a big accomplishment. But I just think that some of what folks might deem the flops and some of his maybe not as competitive of a drive as someone like a Kobe in terms of his will and desire to win might at times to me seem a little less than what I think it could be. And then, of course, this generation of management of your games and time played and everything. A lot of those guys we've listed on this list before, they showed up and played in games regardless. And so I just kind of think those are some of the reasons why I slid him into number 2 for me personally.
All right, I knew this was where our lists were going to deviate from one another. So I'm going to probably catch a lot of heat from people listening to this. But my number 2 is Michael Jordan. I'm going to tell you the reasons he's great, and I'm going to save my comments for why he's not number 1 when I give my number 1. So in terms of Jordan's greatness, dude only played 15 seasons due to his 2 retirements. During those 15 years, he racked up a Rookie of the Year, 5 MVPs, 10 out of his 15 seasons he led the league in scoring, 3 seasons he led the league in steals. He's got a Defensive Player of the Year award back in '88. In 9 of his 15 seasons, he was on an all-defensive team. In 10 of his 15, he was a top 5 vote getter for MVP. And I imagine what you're going to say here in a moment is that he's the GOAT because he's undefeated in the NBA Finals with 6 Finals MVPs, and those Finals MVPs are an NBA record. He was an All-Star in 14 of his 15 seasons, which is number 9 all-time for the most All-Star appearances. In 11 of his 15 seasons, he was on an All-NBA team. 10 of those were first-team appearances. I'll go through the stats. Regular season, he's the number 5 all-time leading scorer, number 4 all-time in stills, number 20 all-time in triple-doubles. He holds the NBA record for points per game at 30.1. In the playoffs, he's number 2 all-time leading scorer, number 3 all-time in stills. He holds the playoff record for points per game at 33.4. He holds the record for most points in an individual playoff game. I can agree, Jordan is an icon. He's one of only 8 players to earn the Triple Crown, having a college title, a gold medal, and an NBA title. He's got 2 Olympic gold medals, including the famed 1992 Dream Team, 2 slam dunk titles. The tagline was, everyone wanted to be like Mike, so they named the league's MVP award after him. Personally, I don't know why you don't name it after Kareem, who has more of the awards, but I'll digress on that one. Jordan went into the Hall in 2009. So in 1999, he was named the 20th century's greatest North American athlete and was second on the Associated Press's list of the athletes of the century. The dude they put higher, just a dude named Babe Ruth. He was on the NBA's 50th and 75th anniversary teams. I get it. Jordan has a lot of iconic moments. The flu game, whether that was the flu or food poisoning. He's got the push-off on Byron Russell, because that's what it was. The shot on Elo. Jordan, to his credit, was an absolute killer down the stretch in games. So for those reasons, I put him at number 2. I'm going to turn it back over to you to probably hear you sing the praises of Jordan as your number 1.
Yes, my number 1 is the absolute GOAT, in my opinion, which is Michael Jordan. You mentioned all of his stats there, which kind of speak for themselves. But I think two of the things, one that you alluded to, but two of the things that set him above most other players, honestly, just about in any sport, much less basketball, is his competitive drive and will to win. For example, you mentioned the game where he was sick and literally had to be held up because he was just, so distraught and, so physically out of it. But his desire and his competitive nature uh, actually enabled him to be able to do something that maybe the normal athlete would have not have attempted or not even tried. And in his clutch performances, he wanted the ball at the end of the game. Nowadays, too many players don't want the ball, or if they do get the ball, they don't really have that killer instinct to go for the jugular. As I mentioned before, he played in the area where they had the Jordan rules, as you're well aware of, where the main purpose of teams like the Detroit Pistons were to throw him onto the ground as many times as possible, beat him up, mug him to death. When he came in the lane, he was going to have his head chopped off. But I also think that one thing that makes him the GOAT is what he set aside and what he enabled financially to be able to do for future generations of basketball players, where he actually changed the whole landscape of financial stability with marketing yourself and marketing your products through shoes and other endorsements. I think he was one of the trailblazers to set things in place so that folks like LeBron and the players of today's generation would be able to come in and make the endorsements and make the money that they make. You did mention his titles, but he also, the fact that he's the 3 consecutive NBA championships, not once, but twice, and nobody else has done that. I think regardless of the times, the teams, the players, just winning 3 in a row of anything in any sport is tough to do at any level, collegiate or professional. And so I think that those are those things, but basically his competitive drive and that desire to win, clutch performance, give me the ball. I want the ball. I want to make sure that I can propel my team to greater heights. I think that's, in my opinion, what makes him number one versus LeBron, and putting LeBron back there at number 2.
Before I get into all the reasons that you're wrong about LeBron, I would like to note that Bill Russell won 8 straight titles, so kind of beats the 2 3-peats, but that's neither here nor there. From the time he was in high school, LeBron James was called the chosen one, and he is my chosen one for the top spot. And I'm going to tell you why. I'm going to give you a little bit of my thoughts on Jordan as well. LeBron has completed 22 NBA seasons now, which that's a feat itself. You went through some of his accomplishments. I won't repeat those. I will add in, you talked about his 4 MVPs in 14 of his 22 seasons. He was a top 5 MVP vote getter. If we talk about his All-Star appearances, he's got the most All-Star appearances in history with 21 appearances. He's been on an All-NBA team 21 times, 13 of those being first-team appearances, which is the NBA record. He's a member of the NBA's 75th anniversary team. He has 3 Olympic gold medals. He's been to 10 NBA finals, including a stretch where he went to 8 straight finals. You brought up the fact that he's jumped to some different teams. Well, let me give you a little history there. He is one of only 4 players in NBA history to win a title with 3 teams. He is the only player in NBA history to win a finals MVP with 3 different teams. Let's get into his stats. You mentioned he's the number 1 all-time leading scorer. That's true. He's also number 25 all-time in rebounds, number 4 all-time in assists, number 6 all-time in steals, and number 5 all-time in triple-doubles. If we go to the playoffs, where we say, hey, it matters more in basketball, he's the number 1 all-time scorer, number 9 all-time in blocks, number 1 all-time in steals, number 2 all-time in assists, and number 4 all-time in rebounds. And I get it. People want to bring up the 6 finals losses. The 2011 loss to the Mavericks, it's not a good look. Outside of those, that one finals, let's put this into perspective. Jordan played in 6 NBA finals. How many Hall of Famers do you think he played during those NBA finals?
I'm sure you're going to say he didn't play as nearly as many NBA Hall of Famers as LeBron has.
You would be correct. So Jordan played 10 Hall of Famers. I'm going to break that down for you. In 1991, when he played the Lakers in the finals, he played Magic, James Worthy, and Vlade Divac. Obviously, Magic was on the decline. 92 was Clyde Drexler. 93 was MVP Charles Barkley. Then you flash forward to 96, he played Gary Payton. And then 97 and 98 was Karl Malone and John Stockton. Now, when we talk about LeBron, who he's played, we have to obviously look at potential Hall of Famers. He's still in his career. These guys can't make the Hall till they retire. A lot of the people he played are still in the league today. Did a bunch of research. When you look at who he's played, LeBron has played 31 potential Hall of Famers in his 10 NBA finals. So triple the amount of Jordan. I want to break that down. 2007, he played the Spurs. They had Tim Duncan, Tony Parker, and Manu Ginobili. LeBron was outmanned. At one point, they were guarding him with all 5 dudes because the rest of his team was so bad. And he still put up 22 points a game, 7 rebounds, 6.8 assists, and a steal. In 2011, the Mavs loss we say is the worst. He still lost to 2 Hall of Famers, Dirk Nowitzki, Jason Kidd. In 2012, he beat Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook, and James Harden, all future Hall of Famers, all guys that would go on to win an MVP award. In 2013 and 14, he faced the Spurs again, who still had Duncan, Parker, Ginobili, and they had Kawhi Leonard. And what I love, if you recall from 2014, Kawhi Leonard was given the finals MVP for his quote-unquote lockdown defense on LeBron. In the loss, LeBron averaged 35.8 points per game, 13.3 boards, 8.8 assists, and 1.3 steals. And they called that locking LeBron down. In 2015, LeBron would lose Kevin Love in the first round of the playoffs. Kyrie would go down in game 1 of the NBA Finals. And LeBron was basically outgunned by Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, and Draymond Green. Andre Iguodala gets credit for shutting down LeBron. That shutting down was LeBron putting up 29.7 points, 11.3 rebounds, 8.9 assists, 2.6 steals, and 2.3 blocks. Dude almost averaged a triple-double, and we said he shut him down. You mentioned the 2016 win. I think that was what cemented LeBron at number 1. He led Cleveland to a title, being the only team to ever come back in NBA history from a 3-1 deficit. That Warriors team, most wins all time, better than your Jordan's Bulls teams. In that series, LeBron averaged 33.6 points, 12 rebounds, 10 assists, 1.4 steals, and 1 block. He was the only player, or has been the only player in NBA history, to lead both teams in a finals in all 5 major statistical categories. The Warriors in 17 and 18 had to add in a 4th future Hall of Famer with Kevin Durant to dethrone LeBron. And then in 2020, LeBron would obviously take out Jimmy Butler and win his 4th crown. So I don't believe questioning the legitimacy of number 1 based on his finals losses makes sense. You think about it, LeBron made 8 straight finals appearances, and that alone is just ridiculously impressive. The only man to go to more NBA finals in a row was Bill Russell with 10. When Russell did it, the league had a max of 14 teams. In LeBron's league, 30. LeBron has been the face of the NBA now for 2 decades. We've got the 3-1 comeback, the block in the NBA finals, the alley-oops over NBA players, passes that have bent the mind, his Game 6 performance over the Celtics, where he carried an entire Heat team on his back, the 25 consecutive straight points on the Pistons in an Eastern Conference Finals. The haters are going to try to hate. They say he doesn't win. Well, he's got 4 titles, and name anyone outside of those Celtics teams that went to that many finals. People say he played too long. You gave him durability. I give you props there. I don't think that's a bad thing. People say he's not clutch. He actually leads NBA playoff buzzer beaters in history. For all of these reasons, LeBron's my number one. You can say that it's the fact that I literally grew up watching LeBron while both he and I were in high school, but I don't think it's generational, as I think his stats stand the test of time. So, Dad, I think you've kind of laid it out. Any other arguments you got? Why is Jordan better than LeBron?
Well, I think that the last few years have not been kind to LeBron in terms of cementing him as the potential GOAT. When you see his antics, as I mentioned before, his flops, he's a large man, and to watch some of his games and to be bumped and fly across the floor like it was a Mack truck hit him. I don't think that's done him any favors. He could get an Oscar for some of those awards. And that alludes for me back to the realness of the league back in the 90s, where it was more like a gang fight than a basketball, especially when you looked at some of those Detroit Pistons players like Bill Lambert, who his one sole purpose was to destroy people on the court. And, today people get touched and it's a foul versus back, years ago, things weren't called as tight as they are now. So you can't hand check, you can't bump people, or they're called for fouls. I think that some of those things, they just haven't done any favors to the conversation over the last few years. Go back maybe 5 to 7 years, and that wasn't as prevalent, I don't think, for LeBron back then. But the last few years, it's been a little bit of a decline, I feel personally, in terms of his antics or lack thereof in some of those situations.
Who do you think has better stats, LeBron or Jordan?
Better overall stats?
Yeah.
Well, I think when you play 22 years, your stats are going to outweigh 9 out of 10 players because you've just been around longer to score more points, make more baskets, have more steals. I think statistically, when you play that long, you're going to lead in some of those areas just because of the nature of the beast. And to kind of come in, I know you say that the teams nowadays are stacked more, and all these potential NBA Hall of Famers in the future, and 3 and 4 guys on one single team. I understand that, but also it's one of those things that folks back in the day tried to stay the course, not go from team to team just in search of that golden trophy. The plan was to try to get the golden trophy on the team that they were planted with.
So, from what I hear you saying, you think we can't look at stats because it's an accumulation.
Not necessarily you can't look at stats, but naturally, I watched an interview with Kareem where they asked him who was the GOAT, and he said, "Well, it took a long, long time for somebody to finally break my scoring record, and if you are a scorer on your team," he said, "somebody that has played as many years as LeBron would eventually have the same opportunity to possibly eclipse LeBron's record if you had somebody like a Steph Curry who has the capacity to drop 40 points in a game from the 3-point line. If he played 22 years, he might actually have an opportunity to do the same thing." But I really like the fact that Kareem said that for him, the one thing that LeBron had was durability, but the one thing that he felt MJ had was the competitive drive. And he felt like that at times he would question LeBron's competitive drive just based on situations and different games that had occurred.
I hear you. I'm going to say this. So, I agree. The longer you play, your total stats are going to be better. However, if we look at per game average, that levels the playing field. And I'm going to give you 2 sets of stats here. The first is regular season performance. In Jordan's NBA career, I'm going to give you Jordan versus LeBron stat line by stat line. Jordan averaged 30.1 points per game, NBA record. LeBron, 27. Give Jordan the credit there. He's a better scorer. Jordan, 6.2 boards per game. LeBron, 7.5. Jordan, 5.3 assists per game. LeBron, 7.4. Jordan, for all of the praise we give him on his shooting ability, he shot 49.7% from the field, 32.7% from three. LeBron, 50.6 from the field, 34.9% from three. So in the regular season, LeBron beats him in every category except scoring. So let's go to the finals, because that's where everybody says Jordan's the GOAT because of his finals performances. In the NBA Finals, Jordan holds the NBA record, averaging 33.6 points per game. LeBron, 28.4. Jordan averaged 6 rebounds. LeBron, 10.2. And Jordan averaged 6 assists. LeBron, 7.8 assists. So again, outside of just total points, LeBron beats Jordan in every statistical category. I got to ask you, what do you guys say about that?
Well, LeBron didn't have a Dennis Rodman on his team who would mop up every basket coming and going during a game. So you focus on what you need for your team. And in LeBron's situation, he needed to rebound more with some of those teams he was on versus being able to do other things. And I mean, you go back to your shooting percentages. Don't you think if the league was as physical today as it was back then, do you think those shooting percentages would be as high for LeBron and even other players today as they may have been for guys back during those times where they were getting, hacked and pushed and shoved about on every shot? I think that kind of speaks for itself in terms of, statistical percentages on shots when you have 5 guys hanging off of you versus one person, like a gnat. But most of the guys guarding LeBron at times were nowhere near his physical size. So that was a big plus for him.
See, I go the other route. I think that the defenders back in the 90s, back in the late 80s, they played that type of defense because they didn't have the athleticism that players do today. I think LeBron's going up against freaks of nature like Giannis, Kevin Durant, Nikola Jokic, Victor Wembanyama, who's like 7'7". I think he grew 2 inches over the summer. There's just all these freaks of nature who can do so much that during Jordan's time, those bigger guys, there was only really 1 or 2 that could move like that. Maybe David Robinson, Hakeem Olajuwon. Most of them, they stayed in the paint. They couldn't hit like these guys can today.
I would agree with that. But like I said, they also didn't need to, those teams didn't need somebody that was a freak of nature because they needed somebody that was Paul Bunyan to just hack people to death versus today where everything is called so close. You need more athletic people who can help in that regards versus back when, everybody was allowed to play rugby on the court. Then you didn't necessarily need to be the most athletic individual, but you could still be, look at Rodman. He wasn't very athletic, so to speak, but he was very good defensively because he pushed and pulled and he played the game that they allowed them to play back during those times.
And I think my dad and I have proven what this podcast is all about. A lot of times we're not going to come to a consensus, and it's going to be based on the era you grew up in. My dad watched a lot of that style of basketball, probably prefers that style. I like the more fast-paced offensive style that we have today. I do want to show my dad some love. Thank you for coming on here, being on here with me for the first episode. For those that are listening, my dad is a published author. What's the name of your book and where can people find it?
It is the Monday Morning Coffee, and it is a devotion book that can be found on Amazon. So it's Monday Morning Coffee, and it is a devotional book found on Amazon.
If you have an interest in checking that out, I'll plug a link to it on the Facebook page for this podcast. Dad, I appreciate you jumping on here with me for an episode. More importantly, I appreciate all of you all that checked this podcast out today. Leave us a 5-star review. Let someone know to check this thing out. I want this podcast to cover topics that interest you. If you have a top 5 list you want us to rank, I take suggestions at generationalfave5@gmail.com. That's generational fave, F-A-V-E, the number 5, @gmail.com. Thank you for tuning in.